Hello and welcome back once again to After the Credits. So the final movie I had planned on catching up on at the end of 2016, I actually had to struggle really hard to bring myself to watch this because I absolutely hate the main character. But at the same time I gave it a shot because the other characters in the previews made it look like it could still be funny despite the main actor. So the final movie that I'm finally catching up on at the end of 2016 into 2017 is Why Him? If you guys watched any of my videos in the past, you'll know that I absolutely hate James Franco. I think he's a shit actor. I don't know why he keeps getting cast in movies, but he does, and we have to suffer through it. But like I said, there are other actors in this movie who actually made it look like it could be funny despite him. And I'll give it credit for that. It ended up being an okay film, but that's no thanks to James Franco at all. If anyone else could have been cast in this film, it would have made it 100 times better. I mean, the only benefit is the character he's playing is kind of this out-of-touch douchebag, and that's who James Franco is. So he's basically playing James Franco in real life in a movie. That character drives me insane. Like, I understand why the character in the movie was such a douchebag because of how he was brought up and who he was and what his character was, and probably James Franco is the best person to play that type of character. I don't know. But personally, I can't stand the guy. I think he's a shitty actor, and I would have rather seen anyone else in this role than him. And his good buddy, Seth Rogen, I have a love-hate relationship with him too. He would have fit into this role great, except he's not the good-looking party guy that James Franco is because Seth Rogen's a little fat. So we start off the movie pissing me right off because we start on James Franco's big, stupid, grinning face talking about his balls, and then showing them to the camera. The whole time he's like talking on his phone, doing like FaceTime with his girlfriend. He's like, "Oh baby, I haven't seen you in a week. You're giving me blue balls. Actually, they're like black. Here, look at him." Like, unbuckles his fucking pants and shows you his fucking balls in the first shot of the film. And it's like, fuck off, James Franco. Fucking hate you. And then like the next scene in the movie, he shows his ass to the camera because for some reason, in every film James Franco and Seth Rogen are in, they gotta show their dick, balls, and ass to the camera because we need to see them, right? So after all that bullshit of James Franco, we get to meet the family of the daughter, the girlfriend of James Franco, the daughter of a dude from Breaking Bad whose name I can't remember, Bryan Cranston, I believe. I almost said Ralph Cramden, but that's the Honeymooners guy. Jackie Gleason for you older people. Anyway, so we get to meet the family, and turns out they're from my hometown. Yay! So that gets a little bit of credit there. They're talking about certain things around the area. It's like, yeah, I know where that's at. I know right where that's at. Yeah, I know what they're talking about there. It's like companies that I don't think even really exist anymore, or if they do, they're like not as popular as they used to be when I was a kid. And they mention them in this movie. It's like, yeah, hometown flavor, And like her whole family environment is kind of cool and everything. And she invites them out to where she's supposedly going to college for the holidays for Christmas. So at first they think they're going to go stay in a hotel and just visit with her while she's in college and eventually meet the boyfriend over the holidays because they finally learn of his existence by showing his ass to everyone. Up until then they didn't know that she even had a boyfriend. So they arrive and they're going to their hotel and she misses the exit and they're like, "Honey, we missed the exit." She goes, "Yeah, I meant to tell you guys about that. He thinks it would be better if we all stayed at his house through the holidays." And they're like, "Well, we got our hotel reservation, blah, blah, blah." And she's like, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's taken care of." So they arrive at the house, and it turns out James Franco's character is a billionaire, has this big, huge house on this private acreage of land, and he's a internet mogul, develops apps or games or some shit, I don't know. They were never really clear about it. Like, they said he developed apps, but then like a lot of times he was playing video games and saying, like, "Yeah, we're developing this," so maybe it's app-based games or something, but they were playing it on like a actual console at one point. So yeah, it's almost like they weren't 100% sure what he did, and I mean them by the scriptwriters, not the family. So he's kind of showing off, and he's just kind of this overzealous person, swears a lot, has no real filter on anything. He even tells his girlfriend at one point, like, "Your mom's kind of hot, and if she wasn't your mom, I'd totally try and hook up with," and stuff. So he just doesn't have a filter on anything. And like he's real open and honest about, like him and the daughter screwing each other and when they met, because she told her parents, well, we've only been dating for a couple months. And he's like, oh, we've been together for like since she's been in school pretty much. He lets it out of the bag that they've actually been living together for a while. She only really goes to the college for her classes, and then like when she really needs to like study or prepare for something, she'll go stay in her dorm for like 2 or 3 days out of the week, but the rest of the time she's living with him, which again, she didn't want her parents to know. So when the father finds that out, of course, he's a little upset with her again, and he thinks, but of course he can't just blame his daughter, like, why do you keep lying to me? Just tell me this shit. Instead, he's blaming the guy for being the bad influence because he's kind of a douchebag, because he's James Franco. So the dad starts to warm up to him a little bit until, of course, the marriage proposal comes. And, he's kind of fine with, okay, he's kind of a douchebag, but he seems like he really cares about her and he treats her well, so if they're going to date, whatever. But then, of course, the guy's like, well, I wanted to get your permission to ask her to marry me. And, of course, the dad's like, no. He's like, what do you mean no? And he's like, well, she's got to finish school. She's got plans. I don't think that this is really the right time in her life for her to be settling down. And so, no, you don't have my blessing to ask her. Not that you really need it, because I know it's like an old traditional thing and everything, and I understand that was the whole point of why he asked in the first place, was he's sticking to those traditions. But really, you don't need to ask parents for permission to marry their daughters. It's an old custom. So it's like, well, you really don't need to ask my permission, but since you did, no, I don't approve of it. And it wasn't necessarily that he didn't like the guy. It's like, if he really felt that his daughter was ready to be married, and this was the guy she chose, and he felt that she really loved him and he really loved her, he probably would have said yes. But he understood his daughter wanted other things out of life, or at least last time he actually knew his daughter, because clearly now he doesn't know his daughter that well. Based on what he remembers of who his daughter was as a person, he knew she wasn't at that point in her life. So that's why he said no. He didn't feel that she would say yes. So James Franco says, well, get me through the holiday, and if I can win you over, then can I have your permission to ask her to marry me? He goes, if you can win me over, fine. Whatever. So, of course, it's a whole back-and-forth fight between them, and it's not so much that, again, it's not that he doesn't like the guy. He respects who the guy is and what he does. He just thinks he's kind of a douchebag. So the holidays come through, and there's a big falling out, and it kind of causes, not really a breakup. It's kind of like she just has a falling out with everyone. Like, her family goes back home, and they're not going to spend the holidays together. She's upset with her boyfriend, but they're still living together and everything. And I guess they're just planning to have a quiet holiday by themselves. And, of course, the boyfriend feels bad about that, so he tells her he's taking her on another trip for the holidays, ends up flying her home to her parents' house. And at that point, the father says, you know what, if you're going to ask her to marry you, then do it. I don't care. But, don't do all the theatrics that you go through. Just get down on one knee and propose to her. Of course, he's going to take the father's advice and do that, but there's a miscommunication between him and his associates, so all the big spectacle of everything goes off and everything. And he's like, yeah, I originally had this plan, and then I was going to scrap it because your dad told me not to do it, but apparently we're doing this anyway. So there's the proposal, and she's flattered by it, but spoilers, if you don't want to know the end of the movie, skip ahead a little bit. But spoilers, she says no. And for all the same reasons that her father originally didn't give his blessing. She has other things she wants to do in her life. She wants to finish school, even though she was planning to drop out of school and start working for his company because it was a great opportunity. She decided that maybe she should finish school just in case they end up breaking up or something. She has a fallback, and she kind of realized that she gave up a bit of herself being with him, and that's not who she wanted to be. So there was still the stuff that she wanted to do, and she was going to go forward with it, but she wanted to do it with him now instead of the things she was originally going to do by herself. So she turns down his proposal, and at first he's kind of like, well, I guess I'll go now. She's like, well, I'm not breaking up with you, you idiot. And she's like, we're still together. I'm just not going to marry you yet. So then the dad's kind of like, not necessarily I told you so, but I told you so. And kind of like warms up to the guy again, like, sorry about the fighting. I appreciate you wanting to ask my permission, but you really didn't need it, and that was what I was trying to get across to you the whole time. And, she said no for all the reasons that I said she would, but when the time comes when she's ready to be married, if you're still interested, in going forward in the future, you have my blessing. So it all kind of resolved, and that's basically the rundown of the movie. Like I said, I kind of spoiled the ending for you. I do like that they actually went with a realistic ending of her saying, you know, after this whole weekend, I've kind of reevaluated everything, and I still want to do the things I want to do, so no, I won't marry you yet, instead of the whole, yes, I will marry you, despite what everyone else says. But the one thing I didn't like about it is it's basically every other movie. I mean, Meet the Parents, same movie. Oh, I was going to ask you to marry me, but now I'm going to ask your father's blessing. Me and your dad are at each other in this little war over you. And ultimately it comes down to it's the daughter's choice anyway, which was the exact same story premise in Meet the Peoples, except with an all-black cast instead of an all-white cast. And this is basically that same movie again, except now it stars James Franco as a douchebag billionaire instead of anyone else. Like I said, it's a movie. Bryan Cranston, you know, his character was good. The mother's character was good. The son's character, the younger brother, he had a purpose. You know, he kind of had that whole, you know, my dad wants me to take over the company, but he's not willing to listen to my ideas. And, you know, he doesn't understand this whole new age of technology where I've had ideas that could have kept the business afloat through all the changes and still been productive. I understand his purpose there, but overall he was just kind of dead weight. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, so here's this other background story. And it's like the one chance they give him to actually like step forward in an environment and kind of express his opinions where the dad would have paid attention. He just kind of fumbles through it and like makes stupid jokes about inappropriate things to high-class business people, and then it's like, I think I'm just going to go to my room now. Why would you even waste your time developing that character rather than have him express himself at that point that it was given to him and have him impress his father enough that later on in the movie his father would say, hey, I'm going to give you a chance to try and turn this around for us. Which eventually the father does anyway, but it would have helped if you'd had that development scene, which they didn't. For the most part, the characters were okay. The daughter was okay, except, you know, she's that whole I can't tell my father the truth thing, which every other damn daughter in every other movie. Yeah, for the most part, like I said, even though it was James Franco, his character was what it was supposed to be, and James Franco, I guess, fits the part, so despite it being James Franco and him being a stupid douchebag, I can't really fault his performance in this one because that's what he was playing. He was playing James Franco. So, what would I give as far as a star rating? I want to give it like a 3. But like I said, it's basically a rehash of Meet the Parents and Meet the Peoples or We the Peoples or whatever the hell that movie was called. And like a ton of other films. So I can't really give it too much based on originality. I can give it a little bit of credit based on hometown flavor and the actual realistic ending of the girl coming to her senses and saying, no, I'm not going to marry you, because any other movie would have had them get married. But then it also loses some of those points again for James Franco, because I just can't stand him, even though his part fit. I can't stand him as an actor. He annoys the shit out of me through this entire movie. Even though that's what his purpose was to annoy me, it still annoyed me. I really can't justify giving it a 3. Even though it is a 3 movie, I'm giving it a 2.5 because of those couple of things. I mean, it's not a 2 because, like I said, the hometown flavor and the more realistic ending. Those are the only things that keep it from being a 2. So I'm giving it a 2.5, although realistically, it's an average middle-of-the-road movie, but fuck James Franco, it's a 2.5. So there you have it. That's my review of Why Him. Again, as always, thank you guys for watching. Remember, like, comment, subscribe, share the video. Links are down there in the description. Click the bell up there in the corner. Make sure you're getting all the updates every time I post new content. And until next time, we'll see you after the credits.